Yeah, so the whole restart button is an interesting conversation because, like you said, it's different for everybody. And to be quite honest with you, that's why I went and became certified in human behavior because I'm finding that no matter what goods and services you bring to somebody, ultimately it's not the goods and service that actually makes them successful, it's them. I can bring you all the best products in the world, but if you're not bought into it, if you don't understand it, if you don't have the right mindset, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedelak. Thank you for listening to the show. I would love if you could give us your opinion on how you felt about the show, your experience that you have in regards to what we've been talking about. I am having an absolute blast, but your input is like dynamite on that explosion. So give us your input. We'd love to hear from you. Any questions, comments, concerns? Give us everything you got. We love it. Thanks. Hope you're having an awesome day. Welcome to the Business Ownership Podcast, brought to you by Awareness Strategies, helping you navigate the waters between entrepreneurship and ownership. Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedelek, and I am super excited that you're here with us today because I am here with my most amazing guest, Gary. Gary, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. So give everybody the highlight of who you are, what you do for business.
Well, I am a financial professional, been doing it over 30 years. I've managed roughly 75 million-ish assets under management. I also do CFO consulting, and I'm a certified human behavior consultant. So I do lots of things. There's many spokes to that wheel, and I have a lot of fun.
Nice. I love it. So let's back up the bus a bit. And how did you get into finances as your thing?
Well, interesting story. So I grew up in rural Pennsylvania, and there was not a lot of conversation about college when I was going to high school. The big conversation is, what are you going to do when you get out of school, and what job are you going to get? So what I did was I graduated from high school and I got a job, and I hated it. And so I went to the next job, and I hated that one as well. As a matter of fact, I had 15 different jobs by the time I was age 23. And I woke up one day and I said, I'm done with this. I'm so sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was broke, no direction, and I was miserable. And that was when I decided to become the entrepreneur that I've always wanted to be, and especially in the finance world. So I jumped in with both feet. I started attending different seminars, personal growth experts, financial seminars, went to college, and I jumped into the financial services industry at age, well, I was 23 years old, 24 years old. So within 3 years, I was a top producer in our office. I was leading sales meetings into the top our offices in the country. I was making six figures, and I was well on my way of really doing something special for me and my family. So yeah, it was an interesting ride.
Very cool. I was thinking you left Pennsylvania and went into Wall Street.
Nope.
Just walking straight across country. I don't care. I'm getting there.
Nope. No, I walked into my backyard and went to work. That's what it
Oh, there
was.
you
Yeah.
go. Nice. I love it. And so you also mentioned the mental mindset
Yeah.
component to all of this. How does that fit in for you?
That's a major piece. And one of the things that I didn't share about my story is I found great success early.
Yeah.
Well, then I made a business decision, and the business decision timing was all wrong, and I ended up broke in year 2000 to 2001. I lost everything within about 18 months, and it was just a bad business decision. But
I
here's the
guess
thing.
you're investing in the tech sector.
No, well, interestingly enough, so I chose to go to a different company. So I actually switched companies. Well, the company I was working for was a proprietary company. That meant that they owned my assets. So they basically owned my book of business. So for me to go out on my own and become independent, I literally had to start over. Well, when the tech market busted, nobody wanted to touch an investment to save my life. So I literally went through my savings in about 18 months. And but I say that to share that the mindset that I had to have all over again to recreate myself, to become successful again, was the reason why it became. So I always tell people, look, success is not necessarily about the end. It's about the person you become as you become successful. It's the journey and the things that you learn along the way allow you to become successful over and over and over again. So maybe you'll lose, your success, but if you have the right mindset, you have the right fortitude, you're actually going to be able to do it again and recreate it and probably do it at a different level.
Nice. Well, and talk to me about kind of how this affects people at different times, because a lot of people, especially if they went through the tech bubble, the real estate bubble, they keep finding themselves in the wrong end of a bubble. And it's kind of how many times can you restart and succeed? Because a lot of people think that they are actually restarting every time from zero, which obviously isn't true. But your opinion?
Yeah, so the whole restart button is an interesting conversation because, like you said, it's different for everybody. And to be quite honest with you, that's why I went and became certified in human behavior, because I'm finding that no matter what goods and services you bring to somebody, ultimately it's not the goods and service that actually makes them successful, it's them. I can bring you all the best products in the world, but if you're not bought into it, if you don't understand it, if you don't have the right mindset, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So, the mindset is a piece of the pie that has to be there as often as you can make it there. And it's hard because there are days you wake up and you say, I just don't want to do this. I'm tired. I want to go back to bed. But it really is a major, major component of all success. And I also have found the more successful people I surround myself with, the more accountable I can be to them, the more encouragement they provide. I tell people, look, don't ask investment or financial advice from broke people. So don't surround yourself with unsuccessful people if you need to have a different level of accountability and success.
Well, and that's often hard for CEOs to do because they, well, business at that level, you have to be the one making the decision. You can't be, buddy buddy with your directors or your board of directors. And so, how do you work with them to be able to create that kind of a community?
Well, I am a firm believer in mentorship and coaching. And I personally spend lots of money on mentors and coaches because, at the end of the day, you're not meant to go through this life by yourself, especially in the daily grinds of work. So I utilize people that I actually compensate to be with me and to work with me and to go through the journeys of business and those types of things. So I pay for it. I just pay for it. And I found that I've got a return on my investment far greater than the money I've ever put into it. So
Nice.
I'm a big fan of actually paying for coaching, paying for that mentorship piece.
Nice. So when you're working with somebody, what does that look like? Are you going in looking at their kind of financials or P&Ls? Are you looking at mindset? What's kind of the entry point usually for you?
The entry point for me is helping them understand who they are and giving them permission to be who they are. And this is what I mean by that. About 8 years ago, I personally was in a funk. And, what I do for a living is very significant. But I personally, at that time, got into this funk and I didn't feel significant. There again, I went out and hired a coach. And the first thing they did with me was put me through a financial or a personality assessment. And I said to myself, I've never been through one. And I said to myself, what in the world is this voodoo science that they're putting me through? I was like, okay, I kind of rolled my eyes. But here's the thing, Michelle, when I got the results back, it blew my mind how accurate it was. So what I did was I went and got certified in it because I sat there and looked at this and said, this is the route that people need to start with in any type of situation. Understanding who you are, being able to accept who you are, being able to understand your natural instincts and your natural behaviors. We make decisions based on two things. The first is to fulfill an inner need. And the second is based on protecting ourselves from the things we fear most. And when we actually understand that, our awareness can go up and we can start to hedge behaviors that lead us to make bad decisions. So all my coaching, all my business clients, we start with understanding who you are, how you make decisions, how you communicate, kind of the emotional piece behind who you are as a person and your personality.
Nice. So can you tease us, without giving away obviously your special sauce, but tease us with kind of some of the components of of what somebody might be looking at as far as that goes? Like,
so what I've done, the fact that I'm in the financial space, I've created a financial personality assessment. So I went to work with Personality Insights, a national firm. They actually had the motor, and I brought the content. So what this assessment does, it gives you, number one, your personality style. Number two, it gives you 8 strengths that you have if you have a good money mindset. So it kind of goes through and kind of gives you some great 8 strengths. But when the days are bad and you don't feel like it, there's also some things that we need to pay attention to. And I call those keys to success. So there are things that we're going to struggle with, but I also give you 8 keys to success that you need to be aware of with your personality style that will help you get over the humps, the challenges, and the difficulties of finances. Then after that, we go into, we give a risk tolerance risk tolerance questionnaire that gives you kind of your risk tolerance style. We go into, case studies so people actually can understand how this works in the real world. And I have a great story for this. So I was doing a seminar, and there's about 200 people there. And in this seminar, it was just a basic financial one-on-one seminar. So I'm sitting here doing this seminar, and I look at the back of the room, and I see this husband and wife, and they're starting to bicker. And I'm like, uh-oh. And I could see from the people around the table that it was getting uncomfortable. So I didn't bring any attention to it. And I ended this seminar, and I look back and I see them closing up their books, closing up their workbooks. And here they come. They're making a beeline for Gary in the front. And I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm going to get. I could just see it. So they got to me, and the first thing the husband said, there was no nicety nice, nothing. He said, I need you to help us with this conflict. I said, okay, what's the conflict? He says, we're ready to start a business. He said, I'm ready to go. I know it's going to be successful. I've told my wife we're going to guarantee it's going to be fine. All she does is sit and complain. She tells me I don't know what I'm doing, yada, yada. And he kind of went down this road. So I looked at her and I said, what do you think? She says, I don't think he's provided me with enough information to know if this is going to work. So I sat there and I asked a few more probing questions because my goal was to really try to get to the bottom of who they were personally. And I said to them both, I said, look, I don't think this has anything to do with the business. I don't think you're hearing what each other's saying to you. So I went in to explain to her husband. I said, look, her personality style is you need to give her security. You need to give her the information. It's not that she doesn't trust you. She just needs the information so she can get comfortable and come alongside you. And he looks at her and he goes, are you serious? And she goes, duh, that's what I've been saying the
I've been
whole time.
telling you the whole time.
Yeah. And I said, no, hold on. I said, have you really been telling him that? And I kind of went through her situation and said, look, you're criticizing him through how you're asking. You're not telling him what he needs to know. He needs to know based on his personality style, the bottom line. Tell him what the bottom line is. You need more information. That's it. And she looked at him. She goes, we've never heard this before. And the crazy thing is, after it was all said and done, a few months later, they were doing fine, but it bridged the gap of communication based on how they were wired. It then impacted their finances in a real interesting way. So it's been working amazingly well. It's starting to pick up some steam, and I'm pretty excited about it.
I love it. So other than dysfunctional relationships and couples, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That only
Marriage
describes like everyone
right?
out there, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to kind of being in business, because I know that a lot of kind of C-suites, they'll hire somebody to kind of be their COO and their CFO and all that. And of course, they're going to have different personality types. They're going to look at money differently, especially a CEO and a CFO. So they're going to get into it. How do you work with the businesses in that kind of respect?
So, I go into businesses and I actually give assessments to all the people I'm working with. All right. And a lot of times those assessments tell us what we're dealing with, relationally. Then I actually provide what we call an interactive guide, and the interactive guide teaches each party how to communicate with one another. And when that happens, the walls come down and the productivity goes up. I went into an organization about 6 years ago, and there were 17 people taking the assessments. And the person who brought me in was saying, look, there's something wrong here. There's an undertow. We're not communicating. The productivity is low. Therefore, it's impeding the finances. And so I went in and did this assessment. Here's the interesting thing. 16 out of 17 people fell in one personality style, and one person fell in another personality style. So I have what I call it's basically a bullseye, and it points out everybody's style and it puts it on the board so everybody can see it. So I put this on the board, and there were just gasps in the room. Like, well, here's the sad part. The woman who was in that one personality style by herself started to cry.
Aw,
And it was a situation where it, first of all, it was an aha moment for her as well,
right.
but it allowed her to say to the team, look, I never felt like I fit in. I've been looking for a job. I don't think you like me. And when they understood, because what I do is I do the training, I teach everybody about the personality styles before I do this, because when I reveal, it clicks and brings it all together. And what she would do to try to fit in was she would get louder based on her personality style. So she thought if she got louder, it was more fun, then people would like her. Challenge was the personality style that she was working against, the louder she became, the more aggravated and angry they became. And when we actually pointed this out and actually kind of I let them talk it out, because what happened, they actually started talking through this themselves. I stood back and just let it happen. It was probably one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever experienced in a group like that at a professional level. So we use these personality styles actually to help teams at a high level, at the corporate level, to learn, first of all, learn each other, but then help them phraseology, how to ask questions, help them to communicate with one another, that they actually connect. You know, John Maxwell says everybody connect or communicates, but very few connect. And this approach to things actually allows people to connect. And what is beautiful is it ultimately impacts the bottom line because it works on productivity.
No, talk to me about this, because when you were telling me that story, my concern is even if it was an engineering firm, even if it was a tech company, when you have everybody in the company with one personality style, you're not getting the the diversity, the feedback,
Yep.
marketing and finances don't always click because they're two completely separate directions. So how did that particular group see an increase in productivity based on being able to work with this other individual, and kind of how did that all play out?
Yeah, it really did. And the other thing it did was it actually shined a light on some of the holes of their hiring, because most HR people hire people like themselves. And when that happens, you get to have this group or this organization or this overarching personality of your business. And sometimes that is very hard to overcome. So in that particular situation, the fact that we taught them, how to utilize this, it really did allow them to, number one, understand the overarching personality of their organization, but also help them see that, you know what, we need to pay attention in our hiring process, because each personality style does bring a certain level of need, if you will, to the program. This is also very powerful when you're dealing with partnerships. You got somebody who is very detail oriented, and they're looking through their processes and they're looking through all the fine details of an organization. But you have somebody else who's out there results oriented, and all they're doing is out there just producing results, 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 results. Those are two rubs that are very challenging with one another, and they also create a lot of friction. So, these types of tools and processes really do lend to, number one, mending fences, but also providing a way to move forward.
I love it. Oftentimes I will see, especially when businesses are starting out, they're kind of going the shoestring approach as opposed to buying into a business. They get to the hiring phase and they're like, okay, I want somebody I can work with, and I want a mini me. Is I hear a lot of it. I'm
Yep,
like, you so
you're
don't
right.
want a mini
Yeah.
you, but okay, we won't go there.
Speaking of
And
mini
they
me,
end up
huh?
they end up hiring people like them. So they're creating that culture of there's a bunch of us all the same kind of working in the business. How does that affect the culture of a business? Because I think people think that that equates to culture.
Well, it can create a negative culture. because just because you have the same personality style as with somebody else doesn't mean you're going to get along. And oftentimes you end up butting heads and it becomes a challenge. It becomes a competition. Just the example of the D personality style, you're both of you are very results oriented. So you can ultimately be going in two different directions pretty darn quick because in your mind, my results are going to get us what we want. And somebody else might be thinking, no, my results are going to get us what we want. Therefore, it becomes a conflicting approach to business. So it really is something that people really need to be aware of just from the standpoint of, it creates it creates a well-rounded organization. And it's not easy, but it is a need.
Nice. So when it comes to the CEO and their financial mindset, how do you help work with them in order to be able to kind of hone in on what the issue might be and how to break through that?
Well, you got to start out with what the goals are and what the direction of the organization. A lot of times we get into this, what we call hypnotic rhythm. And it's, I don't know if you ever heard of it from Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich. And basically what it means is we wake up every day and we go to work. And we get into this rhythm of just hypnotics and we start to react rather than be proactive. So a lot of times it's starting over, and sometimes CEOs tend to forget that sometimes it's good to get back to the basics, to review of your values, your missions, and your purpose. And then you understand, is the organization actually moving in the direction of what we've established it to be? Same thing with finances. How do we monitor the finances in an effective way that it gives us purpose? And oftentimes we get a P&L and we go right to the bottom line instead of actually looking at the meat and the details. I often try to make finances very visual for top guys, so it's a glance and they can actually see performance based on a graph, following trends. The numbers sometimes tend to get muddled, and it takes a lot of effort to sit back and look through if performance is where you are. I always ask my clients, can you make profits and lose money at the same time? And the answer is yes. And oftentimes it happens and we don't even recognize it. So it really is just pulling the layers back in an organization, starting at the basics, getting good basis to start to see if we're making good decisions.
I love it. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you about a Cinderella story of one of your clients. I know you've had some awesome stories, so I'm looking forward to this one. And before we do that, we're going to take a quick.
Are you running a business over 7 figures but still struggling with technology headaches? Pay attention, you do not want to miss this offer. This podcast episode is brought to you by Awareness Strategies, who is offering a custom-built digital adoption roadmap for anyone running a business over 7 figures who's wanting to grow their business in the next 5 years. And it's not just a roadmap, they offer full implementation as well if that scares the out of you. Check out awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap for more details today. The link's in the show's notes. Don't regret not doing this. Do it now. That's awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap.
So I am super excited to hear an example of a Cinderella story of one of your clients.
Can I give you two?
Absolutely.
All right. So this is a fun story. I got a phone call from a mother, and the mother was calling regarding her son, just graduated from college, making a great wage, and mom and dad were frustrated. And the frustration came from the sense of he wasn't creating a budget. So he's out here making all this money, and he's doing great, and he's out spending it. So I started asking questions, and I know the mom and dad, and I knew kind of what their style was. And I said to her, let me ask you something. I said, was your son a class clown in high school? And she goes, oh, yeah, always having a good time, breaking it up, blah, 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 blah. I said, did he like to party in college? She goes, oh, yes, yeah, we had those conversations as well. And I said, well, let me tell you something. What you're pushing him to do and beating him up about is something he will always struggle with. And she said, what do you mean? I said, you're asking him to be detail oriented, and that's not how he's wired. I said, the other thing is he likes to have fun. And the more restriction you put on his money, the more he's going to fight it and the more he's going to run from it. I said, so in order for you to get him to buy into a budget, you need to work it from an angle of, if you budget, it will allow you to have more fun. And she says, Gary, I've never heard that in my life. And I said, so you want to make the budget an adventure. Tell him you want to take him on an adventure. There's going to be highs and lows. There's going to be surprises. And at the end of the day, you're going to find a pot of gold. And she's like, he would probably buy into that. And I said, absolutely. So in understanding how her son was wired and put together in his personality style, they were able to communicate to him differently about money that he would stop and actually listen. So that's a personal one. Another business one, I was working with a young man about 3 or 4 years ago. And, he was struggling with the whole profit and loss side of things. And so we started doing a deep dive, and I gave the personality assessment. And based on how he was wired, I said, you need to understand something. I said, you're running your money based on your personality. And I said, let me ask you something. I said, are your personal finances working the same way? He goes, how'd you know? I said, because you're making all decisions based on how you are wired. So you're making them based on emotions. You're making them based on habits. You're making them based on the results-oriented person that you are. Therefore, you're not paying attention to the individual line items. I taught him that his marketing number was so off the charts, he didn't recognize it. And I said, how do we monitor what you're getting for the return on your dollar in your marketing budget? He goes, I don't follow that. I said, exactly. You don't follow that. So there were other line items that we were able to point out that were just off the charts, out of kilter with percentages. And again, it was one of those things, results-oriented guy, got his P&L, went right to the bottom. Tell me what my results are. So I tell people, look, we are wired the way we need to be wired for a reason. It's not right. It's not wrong. One style is not better than the other. They're just different. And we have all the styles within us, just some things come to the top better, more than others. So we need to utilize your strengths in your personality to succeed and hire out the difference. So if you don't have someone in your organization that's going to give you the details that you need to go find that person and build this structure to fill in the holes where you see them so that you can be successful in your finances and in business.
I love it. Well, I know our listeners are going to want more from you. So how did they start that journey with you?
Well, you can reach out to me on my website, arblasterconsulting.com. Are you going to post that so they know how to spell that?
Right. Absolutely. We will, of course, have all of Gary's links in the show notes. So go ahead and scroll down, open up in a new browser because we're not done yet.
That's great. Yeah, you can reach out to me through LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn and also my website. And you can email. Feel free to give me a phone call as well. So thank you.
Nice. Awesome. And the assessment. Talk to me about the assessment. How do they get a hold of that?
Well, the assessment is actually on my website. There's two options. There's a quick and dirty 10-page report that's very basic. It tells you your style and your strengths and weaknesses or keys to success and your risk tolerance. But there's also a 42-page deep dive. It actually goes into understanding the personality style itself. It gives you the keys to success. It gives you the stories that you can kind of walk through and kind of look and see how it works. There's just a lot of great information there.
Nice. And what kind of things might somebody be going through that they should really go and do the deep dive?
Well, if you're looking for a really deep understanding of how your personality is really where it comes from and how it actually applies, the deep dive is the one you want to get. It will literally change your world if you allow it. It really will.
And I'm assuming if they're making a lot of knee-jerk reactions and things are changing radically after a decision, might want to go ahead and consider that one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, the goal with this thing is for you to pause before you act and raise your awareness, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship management. It really is an opportunity to do so.
Beautiful. So like I said, peeps, all of Gary's links are in the show notes. Go ahead and scroll down and open up a new browser because we're not done yet. So Gary, I get to ask you, at what point in life did you know you're especially kind of crazy enough to think that you could become an entrepreneur?
Well, I was always told that I was different. They used to say my mother dropped me on my head when I was young. So I felt I was a little different from the early ages of life. So I always felt that things were going to be unique in my world. And you can ask my wife, it's been a kind of a goofy, incredible ride. So yeah, it's been a long time.
I love it. You've been absolutely awesome. Any last words for our peeps?
If anybody's looking for a keynote speaker on this subject, I do a lot of keynote speaking for organizations and clubs. And I would love to share this at a different level for your organization.
I love it. Thank you, Gary, so much for your time. I appreciate it. And I know how valuable it is.
Thank you.
Awesome. Peeps, this is Michelle Nedelec. Thank you for being here with us today. Be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your friends. We love helping entrepreneurs grow.
Are you running a business over 7 figures but still struggling with technology headaches? Pay attention, you do not want to miss this offer. This podcast episode is brought to you by Awareness Strategies, who is offering a custom-built digital adoption roadmap for anyone running a business over 7 figures who's wanting to grow their business in the next 5 years. And it's not just a roadmap, they offer full implementation as well if that scares the out of you. Check out awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap for more details today. The link's in the show's notes. Don't regret not doing this. Do it now. That's awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap.